It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
All right, we are live. Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears postgame show. Lions pull it off. They beat the Chicago Bears on a Jake Bates game-winning field goal to basically go 9-8 and winning record. You sweep Ben Johnson and the Bears. For a second, you're watching the second half of that football game. You're thinking, nope, this is typical Lions second half meltdown on offense. I mean, that's what you're saying, defense, both sides, just a complete meltdown. Things happen. You end up getting in scoring position. You kick the field goal due to an Amon-Ra, big-time yak from him, and they get it done. So, again, you leave with a moral victory.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything, but you beat the Bears, you swept them.
Before Klotz, because I know Klotz is going to be like, I hate this team. This team sucks. His little he reminds me of the Scrooge of football, which is fine. We always call you a Scrooge. You need a Scrooge.
Called you the Scrooge.
Listen, the moral victory, I know it's like Lions fans don't want to hear it. I think the worst part about this the worst part about it is if you just beat the Vikings last week, you're in the playoffs right now. Like that hindsight, that sucks, hearing that and seeing that. But I guess there's just, like, I don't know, like it's hard to be like, yeah, positives going to the offseason. Like, no, I think now you're just at a point, you turn a page of this whole season and you essentially just go, okay, Jeff, like the one thing you said earlier today with Kelvin Shepherd, like I hope Dan doesn't take today's game with the defense, and they've had some good stops and they had some good plays. They need to take a whole look at this team as top to bottom. Like, don't let this win, Dan Campbell, change your viewpoint of the season. Like you still missed the playoffs. I don't care if you went 9-8. Your defense still was terrible in moments. You need a new, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, you need a new DC, an experienced guy that comes in. You need a new offensive coordinator. You need a new O-line. You need an interior defensive line to stop the run. And you might need some safeties and some corners. Like, there's a lot, right?
It's a lot that you just listen
You
to.
can't be, just because you won the final game of the season and you went into this game and you essentially, change the narrative maybe a little bit in your mind. Like, you can't have that mindset. If I was Dan Campbell, I would have gone into this game and say, no matter what happens, yeah, we want to win and we want to go out on a high note, but no matter what happens, we know what we need to fix. And this is going to change the outcome of anything. Because that, in my opinion, you knew what you were 2 weeks ago when you lost to the Steelers and when you lost last week to the Vikings. You knew what you were now at that point. Mm-hmm. And you knew what needed to be fixed. Yep. And no matter what happened moving forward, there's nothing that's going to change my mind that this team was disappointing. It was the most disappointing season. I'm not going to I don't want to say since like the 0-16 year, but you were a Super Bowl favorite and you missed the playoffs. You could almost say that. If you're talking about disappointing, right? Like, you had the highest of the hopes out of anyone in the NFL.
No, this was just a gross game. And I'm happy they decided to show up when it mattered the least. The offensive line looked great today. First time you could probably say it in 2.5, 3 months since week 1. So I'm with you, Boom. Like, great. You got a cute win in Chicago where you can hardly normally win anyways. When the team's healthy, when you go back last year and you have the demons up front on the offensive line, you go into Chicago and you most of the time shit the bed, if not closely shit the bed. And they won today. So great. Gold star on the paper at the end of the day. At the end of the day, in my opinion, I wanted to see this team go into Chicago, put up some fun plays, and lose, because you need as many assets as you can get, as simply put. And this gives you a worse draft pick. So I'm not a happy camper now.
No, my guess would be we already have an idea of where we're going to get draft. I know. So I think the best chance was, what did I say, 15th?
11th.
The lowest you get. I think the best chance was 15th. So even if you win today and you get like 13, 14, I'm happy with that. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
If you lose today, or if you win today and get, what do you mean?
If you win today, because the highest odds of like the chance was 15. Win or lose, it was 15. They had a 25% chance of getting the 15th, which was the highest percent of any pick. You see what I'm saying?
So win or loss, you're saying the selection wouldn't have changed?
No. I'm just saying I'm hoping since you won, you're at least 15th or lower.
Because I hope that this win doesn't cost them like 4 or 5 draft spots. Because I think that's like, and I know people are like, well, it's 5 draft spots. That matters.
So-
Yeah.
Because if you want to trade up 5 draft spots, you're going to have to use capital that you actually don't have that much
because
of.
you've used it in the past.
Yeah,
for
so that's
nothing.
probably not ideal. I understand the you want to sweep Ben Johnson. Like I understand the ego side of it. It's like, well, you swap Ben this year. It's like whatever. The Bears are obviously going to win the division, so it's awesome. But again, me personally, I don't think the win over the Bears, maybe morally next year, it's like, well, we swapped Ben last year. But in big picture
It
sense,
amounts
it's like
to nothing.
it really
Can
it doesn't mean too much in my opinion. But
So the percentages, Jeff, entering today, it was you had a 25% chance of getting the 14th overall, which was the highest. The second highest was 13th overall at 23, and then the third highest was all the way back down to the 16th overall pick, and then the 17th.
so it is like 4 draft spots.
So no, I don't know if it was 4, but like the highest you could have ended up getting is 18th, and the lowest was 11th. But there were a 4% chance you got to 18, and there was a 1% chance you got to 11.
So it's probably
They're
more like
sitting at, like,
13 to like 17 or something.
Yeah.
The highest chance was 14th.
So it's
if
probably
you
like
if you
4
won this
picks.
game and you're still at 14, I'm fine with it because that was what your
Sure,
best
yeah.
chance was. Anyways, I'm sitting here refreshing and seeing if any beat writers or someone puts out
Where they pick.
the
'Cause I
top
think
10
that-
picks. The top 10 picks are locked in for the NFL draft. The Chiefs are at 10, locked in. Top 10
crazy.
pick.
Crazy fall.
Guess who has the
that's
number 1 overall pick?
the Raiders. I saw
Raiders.
earlier. They clinched it.
Raiders, Jets, Cardinals, Titans, Giants, Browns.
Someone said
Commanders
Steve Wild
and
says they will
Saints.
get the 16th pick if the Ravens win.
What do they get if they don't win?
I'm
That's the question.
I'm assuming it might be like maybe 17.
I'm
I don't know.
not
If you're saying you're hoping they win to get 16, then
Oh,
So
yeah,
the
it
Lions
probably
beat
is
the
higher.
Ravens too.
Yeah, and we do have NFC playoff. This is post game, so it's everything, I guess. And we'll talk about the Lions season, but the NFC playoffs, Seahawks bye. Packers are going on the road versus Chicago Bears.
That's the playoff matchup.
That's the first one. The
That's a good one.
49ers are going on the road to the Philadelphia Eagles.
That'd be a good
And
one.
the
a great
Rams
one.
have the easiest playoff matchup of all time,
They got
going
the
on the
South.
road to the Carolina Panthers.
Well, they just lost to them earlier.
They
They
did,
lost to
actually.
them.
They
Good
did.
point, Hefe.
They did lose to them, but I don't think they lose
The
twice.
AFC as of right now is the Broncos bye, Chargers at the Patriots. Great
That'll be a
football
good
game.
one.
That's gonna be a good
The
one.
Bills at the Jags, great game. And then the Texans are going to go on the road to one of these Ravens or
That's a
Steelers.
box
Which
for
the Texans will win that one, in my opinion.
All right, breaking news per Jennifer Hammond, Fox 2. Shout out to Hammer. Taylor Decker said walking off the field that he will not make an immediate decision about his future,
why'd
and
you
he's
have
going to
to-
give it some time. Of course. I just want to give a little.
He's got. I mean, I think for the Lions, like if you're a
It
Detroit
is a big
Lions
decision.
fan,
I am partially
Again,
kidding there. I mean, it
what
is
I
a
tell
big
you,
decision.
Klotz, and what I tell those boys earlier, you get it up on Instagram. You're all good. Hey, be safe.
Shout
Drive
out
safe,
Caleb.
Caleb. Shout out
Shout out
Caleb.
Caleb.
Appreciate you, man.
Great season out of Caleb.
I said it a
Another
little
one.
earlier, and Caleb didn't like I said this the other night on Friday, but I don't know where you were at with it. I just said you sit Taylor Decker down and you're straight up with him and you say we're drafting a tackle in the first round. You can either retire or we're going to have to cut you. And I don't want this to be a Kelvin Johnson situation. We don't want it to be a Barry situation. We don't want it to be
Yeah.
a situation you don't like us. But like, look what we just went through, and it has nothing to do with you. But it's more so. No, I'm just saying, like, as a person,
Age, yeah.
but and you, what you did for the organization, it's more so just we have to build this offensive line out. And I'm not saying you're untrustworthy, but your injuries and your age,
Just
those
the
are
natural
all,
decline. Like you
Yeah.
can. It's like it's written all over. Like Taylor Decker, like he was okay this year. Like what C plus level player. And to your point, like that means next year take it to a C minus D plus. And this team just as an offensive line needs to get stronger, needs to get healthier, and in my opinion, most importantly, after Ben Johnson leaves, needs to get more athletic. Like as
Yeah.
far as getting up to that second level in the open field, making blocks. I know there was no Panay today, but it's been like it all season. Booner, you were making the point earlier. It's like, how do you have Jahmyr Gibbs and you can't get to the edge? I know you don't have Sam Laporta, but my God, you have a top 10 player in football, offensively or defensively, just overall, Jahmyr Gibbs. And to see him struggling to get going, like if you can't get Jahmyr Gibbs going, you are not going to get any other rookie running back, free agent running back. You're not going to protect any quarterback.
Yeah.
This offensive line just needs a just complete rehaul outside of Panay, and I think you have to do that in the first round and free agency. And if you're hanging on the most critical part at left tackle, It's just delaying the inevitable.
I think the number one thing, and I know Lions fans feel like, and I know like the doc was tweeting out and saying there's so many, like they need a whole, like there's so many things wrong with this team. Dude, I'm going to stand on this whole offseason, and I truly believe this. If you just fix this offensive line this offseason, and that's your number one priority, you get back to where you were. Like
I agree,
that's
especially with a fourth place schedule.
And as crazy as this is to sound, if and I don't want it to happen, but if Shep stays and Dan keeps calling plays, if you just get a legit offensive line, you're going to be back in the playoffs and you're going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl and you're going to be good next year. I think like a lot of people maybe overcomplicate this sometimes and try and
you're not going to get every position. Yeah.
No, like you try and analyze it too much. Well, you can get D tackle, edge rusher, second, this, that. I think it's as simple as you rebuild this offensive line. You put all of your assets and money into getting a new offensive line like the Bears did. You will be a Super Bowl contender again. And you're right back in that window. And like Jeff said, that second phase of the window, you're right back in it. That's it. You can cut guys, trade guys. I don't care. Your number one priority this offseason, in my opinion, needs to get that run game going, protect Jared Goff. You'll have a chance to win a Super Bowl, no matter who's controlling the offense and the defense. And to me, that's a fact. Like that, I just don't see – that feels like that's like the bottom line of this whole offseason.
Yeah, the Brad and Dan thing, and I don't think they have room for error in terms of messing up any of those decisions when it comes to hitting on your coordinators. You can't mess that up again. And Brad, you can't mess up when it comes to draft picks on the O-line. Okay, he's not going to hit 100% of the draft, but you at least have to get the O-line right. And they got to find out, we've been asking for this for 5 years, who's rushing the passer on the other side of Hutch.
Yeah.
We're going to ask that again because AQM's out, probably 90% chance he's gone. Someone's going to pay him, and then Marcus Davenport you're not bringing back. So if people have questions on the interior too, what happens with Reeder? Is Tyleek the future there? Roy Lopez, etc. Aiden obviously is your one guy, even though he gets criticism. He's the guy you're not worried about as much in the future, even though he's paid a lot of money. I get that. Brad and Dan got to nail those two things: offensive and defensive line for Brad, and then maybe some replacements for other guys. But yeah, and then coordinators. Yep. And if they can do that, and I know it's like easier said than done, they're gonna be in a good spot. But the thing that Dan can't do, and this is where I'm nervous, and this week we'll probably be talking about it more, is especially Brad speaks to the media this week, by the way. Speaks Thursday. So that'll be a huge press conference. But for Dan, what are you doing with these coordinators? Are you keeping Kelvin Shepard? Okay, what does today mean to you, Dan? Does it give you hope that the defense is finally clicking? And now you're like, well, next year we got momentum going. Or are you just like, you know what, dude? We need two just absolute proven dudes at coordinators, like the Eagles did with Fangio and more. That, to me, is going to be one of the bigger decisions going into the offseason. Is what does Dan do, man? Did you end up holding on to these guys and being, in my opinion, stubborn, or do you want to just be like, fresh slate, let's get some guys in here? And I know it's a new system, whatever the case may be, even though they're going to try and work with Dan on the offense, but it is still two new coordinators with probably two new systems. But it didn't take long for the Eagles to get that right with their two coordinators.
Because when you pay for experienced coordinators, they're not inexperienced at implementing a system. Like at the end of the day, whether it's the talent, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the trainers, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, you're going to get what you pay for. If you're paying for two new first-year guys, you don't have to pay as much. You're going to get the first-year problems. If you go out, it doesn't have to be Brian Dable. I'm saying somebody with a Brian Dable type of experience where he's been a head coach, he's been successful as an offensive coordinator, and he's got a fire under his ass to rebuild his reputation in the NFL and hopefully get back to being head coach. Then you're getting somebody who's going to take that seriously and most likely, compared to somebody that hasn't done it, give you a return on your investment. When you look at these free agents that have blown up in their face, these coordinators that have blown up in their face, they're not getting any return on investment because they're trying to nickel and dime and find a way to make it happen in a way that hasn't been done before. If it hasn't been done before, it's probably not going to be done before. Ever. So go out there and pay for what you get instead of trying to just be discount buyers all the time.
I'll say this too, like now that it's crazy it's officially the offseason. This is and this is an obvious statement, but it's the biggest offseason that Brad Holmes has had.
Without a doubt.
It's a make or break. Like we've talked about for years outside of the last 6-7 months. We have talked about Brad Holmes. Did not mean that. We talked about how Brad Holmes is a top 5 GM, top 7 GM in the NFL. If he has if he has an average offseason, he's dropped out of that.
Like untouchable?
No, he's dropped out to like if he just has an average offseason, he's like 10, 11, 12. And you could, like, right now, like, going into this year, you put him up there because of the teams that he's built and what he's the foundation. But last year, you know, when the foundation's built, it's like, what do you do and how do you get over that hump when the foundation is built?
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to get over that hump this first year last year. And then this year, this is going to be another one where it's like, can you get over that hump? If you can't do that, I'm not saying you're a one-trick pony, but, like, you can build and you can get an organization there, but can you get it over the hump
and sustain that level?
Yes, and the sustainability, that's like in my opinion, the main thing right now is Brad's had 2 drafts that have not been great. And he's got some free agents, but he hasn't gone all in on free agents. And he did the Za'Darius trade, but he hasn't really affected the trade deadline to win you a Super Bowl or win you playoff games. So there's, like, those little, like, cracks that haven't been filled in for him yet. And it's like, hey, if you do want to be in that Howie Roseman, Les Snead, those guys' level, you have to be good at everything. And you just haven't seen it. Those guys filled the cracks, and those guys were good after building the foundation and getting over the hump. He hasn't. And if he doesn't this offseason, Klotz, like, you haven't been on the show in a couple of weeks, but, like, and I told Jeff this, like, next, if you don't, I would say win a playoff game next year, you're on a hot seat.
Yeah, you should, because if you're not going to do it, then when
I don't care
you?
what you built. Well, what was it? What was the law term I used? Statute of limitations. Like, hey, the first 2 or 3 years were awesome, but hey, after that, like, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
that was 2
not
seasons
living in
ago.
the glory days.
Yeah, and if you're a Lions fans, like, hot seat. Yeah, if you make the playoffs next year and you get bounced in the first round, I'm saying something. What are you doing?
Flannel,
that's 4 straight years.
Flannel talking about all the time. In my opinion, the worst thing ever to be as a sports fan would be like the Steelers,
Stuck in the middle,
where you're just 8-9, 9-8. Hell, maybe one year you get lucky and you're 10-7, and you're just wild card. Because now it's the NFC North is good, the NFC West is really good, the NFC South is shit. I'll give you that. But even the NFC's, like, the Eagles are always going to be there. If the Commanders get healthy again, they're always a threat. We saw what they could do last year. So this conference, especially 2025, was pretty wide open as it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be the same case. You could see the clear, like, passing of the torch. The AFC's been the dominant conference. This year's been the NFC.
So I tweeted this out in February.
Oh, here we go.
And this was one of my most, like, criticized. I had 200 replies on it, crapping on this tweet. All right. And I just retweeted it recently.
Yeah.
I tweeted this out at the Super Bowl. I said the biggest loser this morning after the Super Bowl is Brad Holmes. I basically, the tweet's about how the Lions are a $50 million company acting like they're still a startup. They are not the 3-win team they once were. Capitalize on your window of your best opportunity. The Eagles just did that by being aggressive and prioritizing the trenches with great players. And I have responses, not going to read off who said these responses. I have, what a terrible take. Did not expect that from you, Jeff. Go look at the Eagles' drafts last 4 years. You know, people saying, I wouldn't dare call Brad a loser. There's people saying this is one of the worst takes I've seen. And by the way, someone just said biggest loser this morning is your tweet. Now, and by the way,
that's a good one.
It's a great one. And I'm not saying that to say, like, I'm right, whatever. I'm saying it to say that there was a point in time where people were thinking that Brad Holmes was just absolved from any criticism. And I like how people would protect this man blindly. And now that we're here, all those people just want to be like, oh, yeah, no, we're cool. We can criticize him. No. All those people that were dying on the sword for this man, you should be held accountable.
I agree.
For coming at the people who were criticizing Brad Holmes. Like, and I know there's sometimes people say things about certain players, and you're like, well, that was just ridiculous. That was a ridiculous thing to say. But there was a legit reason to be concerned, and he tweeting that out after the Super Bowl. It's like, dude, look what the Eagles have done. They've been aggressive, and I use the Eagles. You can use the Rams. You can bring up a bunch of examples, but that was just the most recent one. It's like organizations capitalizing on their window and being aggressive, and the Lions just sitting there and staying pat, and people being like, oh, eating whatever Brad Holmes feeds them. And now everyone's sick of it. All right, they're sick of it. It's like in prison, you eat the same meal every day. Like eventually, you're gonna be like, "This shit sucks." Like,
it ain't that good.
I want some, I want something different. I want some sirloin.
You don't want the bologna sandwich with government cheese on it anymore.
No.
After a while, that government cheese, also known as Marcus Davenport, gets old. Even though it expires a little later, it gets old, and you don't want to pay any more attention to it.
Yeah, no,
time to upgrade.
I think it is funny, like hindsight looking back at when anyone ever criticized any minute thing about the Lions. And listen, and I hope you boys are like Boone. I was a Lions. I am a Lions slappy.
It's all right.
But over the last 12 months,
You've been able to be level headed for the most part.
Since before the 15-2 season when that was done, I was someone that started to turn. It's not a bad thing to turn your head on Brad Holmes, but to be like, hey man, you just went to the NFC Championship game, lost. You didn't address all of the needs, and then you get into this year and there's offensive line. Like, yeah, I thought they were gonna have a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. I thought that there were, you know what I mean? Like, I made those arguments. But at the same time, it was like, dude, I even had some, like the Lee McNeil thing, some different things. And instantly you have a million people like, you're the dumbest person in the world. And I think, like, when Jeff showed me that tweet yesterday, I was like, this is, like, it's one of the most insane things I've ever seen.
It's even funnier when you look back at how big of a deal Zadarius Smith was going into the last offseason and how people are pounding the table for him to come back and saying how he's going to come back, he's going to be back. And then when he doesn't resign,
we didn't need him. Never needed him.
He could stay at home. Him and Cash doll. Oh, my God.
Oh, the amount of tweets that I got when he retired, people are like, see, Booner, I told you I were used to. What? What?
Makes no sense.
Brad knew he was going to retire. No, he didn't. Brad went on 97-1 when we were at training camp and literally said, I have been in contact with his agent, and they made it well known that they were trying to get Zadarius Smith back in Detroit. They didn't.
You know what pisses me off too, and someone just
deal with the Eagles.
Someone just brought this up. It's just, to me, it's funny that you have Jared Goff, and it's from the players too. Like, this is where it's humbling this whole season for players as well. Jared Goff goes on 97-1 and says that it pisses him off that fans are doubting the Lions. Buddy, you've been quarterbacking the entire season. You know just as well as fans do what the hell they've been watching. Of course they're doubting you. You missed the playoffs as a top 5 Super Bowl favorite. Like,
well, you remember the next week he had an interview and he backtracked and was like, "I understand."
Yeah,
I mean, clearly, he was like, Jared. I don't know if he said word for word, but he got asked something again, and he was just
like, "Of course they're doubting you. You guys lost to Max Brosner.
Yeah,
that's Klotz. That's Klotz taking snaps." I mean, that's Klotz back there taking snaps.
I would like to think I'm
Klotz
more
would have
of
thrown for more than 50 yards.
Yeah, all you needed, Klotz, because you gave him 50 yards.
By the way,
they won.
50 on the ground.
Hey, real quick, I don't want to veer us off too much of Lions talk.
Stupid.
I will say, congrats to Matthew Stafford's going to end up winning MVP.
What did he play?
Game today.
What did he play? What did he do?
Oh my gosh! And he's now the favorite. He's minus 120.
Good.
Drake May's minus 110. Drake May today had like 150 yards. They won 38-10. He had like 150 yards and 1 touchdown. Stafford, he had
4 tugs and 400,
260 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions.
Yeah,
today.
and then they're about to go play the Panthers next week.
Well, yeah,
and
I think
revenge.
it ends tonight, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
It's a regular season.
No, I know,
Yeah,
but that's
no.
what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
they're
And, well,
they're
they got
going to go in
momentum
there with
going into
momentum.
And he's
Yeah.
now the favorite. He's minus 120. It's close, so it could be a close race, but it's minus 120 to minus 110.
I don't really care who gets it, but I'm happy for
Dude,
Stafford.
Stafford threw for I don't know,
At
a
his
billion
age,
yards. He deserves an MVP for his career.
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
say
with
that. People might hate to hear that.
Yeah.
I think he does.
Flannel looked
I'm
like
surprised he
hated to hear
doesn't
that.
have an MVP award in his career. I mean,
He threw for 4,800 yards, almost 4,800 yards, 46 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions.
He threw for 46 touchdowns.
that's kind of like an Aaron Rodgers season when he won MVP.
I had no clue he
He
threw
was
for
at
46
I believe
touchdowns.
I could be wrong. I think he was at 4. He entering today. Did he play all 17 games?
Yeah.
Yeah. So entering today at 16 games, 42 and 8. And so then you had 4 touchdowns to that.
That's
46
wild.
And 8.
I didn't know he had 46. I
Yeah.
thought he'd have like 35
Incredible
or something like that. Yeah,
season.
there's no question about
Ripped
it.
him, dude.
And he
And
doesn't win
he's not
MVP,
mobile.
dude. That's such
He's
a,
not
that's a,
mobile
that's a
either.
rob. And he had 1 game where he had 4.
If you ask
interceptions.
Doc, he was always the problem. That's what Doc says.
Yeah, but then
His
he won a
contract,
Super Bowl.
maybe, but
Then he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, we'll I think the Rams. I still would pick them. That's probably my pick
Yeah,
out of the
that's
NFC.
my
I still
team.
think they're going to win. Probably make the
They
Super Bowl.
probably. It's going to be Bills Rams.
Bills
That'll
Rams
be one of the
looks like
best Super Bowls we've seen. In a
And I
while.
think the Texans. I've been saying that with
Texans
you
got
for
a
a long
chance.
time. I love the Texans because you're talking about a team that's a sleeper, great defense, best defense in the league, and a quarterback we've seen play well.
Yeah.
Like we've
CJ.
seen great.
They've been
we've
in the
seen him play
AFC
well.
Championship game every year with CJ Stroud.
You see what I'm saying? We've seen him play well. It's not like the guys just automatically just suck.
Or division
So, that'll be a legit.
It's
But
crazy that the Rams are third in their division, right?
Yeah.
No, second actually.
Yeah, that division is.
Oh yeah,
because
technically.
they got the 5th seed.
But yeah,
And you have the Seattle Seahawks who just locked up the number 1 seed. with Sam
14
Darnold.
wins. Insane.
You know what? Yeah.
The Panthers, what would you have if I told you, hey Booner, hey Jeff, the Carolina Panthers are going to make the playoffs this year,
I tweeted
but
that
the
out
Detroit
today.
Lions aren't.
This morning, or when they ended up clinching, I tweeted out. I said, Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers in 2025 are in the playoffs, and Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions are out.
Insane.
They're chanting MVP in the locker room. They showed it on the thing.
If he doesn't win MVP, that's such a robbery.
What do you guys think about that now that we're talking about it? The division versus seedings with like records.
It's weird.
Because I think you have to put value in divisions. I think that's what makes football great,
I
right?
agree.
You
When
win your
people,
divisions.
well, yeah, when there was the whole thing last year when the Vikings and Lions were matched up and people were like, well, they should both be the top 2 seeds. Like, no, they shouldn't. Like, I do think divisions should matter. I don't care if the Panthers are 8 and 9. Like, there has to be some incentive to winning divisions or they just don't matter. It'd be the NBA. Like, the NBA has divisions. I couldn't tell you right now who's in the Eastern Central. I don't give a damn about it. But I think in the NFL, it should
That's where
matter.
it gets
If it was like an automatic division winner didn't get in, so like to say the Panthers got out because they're 8-9, Vikings would have got in.
That's even worse.
Because they're 9-8.
We're both tied for 9 and 8. Vikings, Lions,
And they beat the Lions
and
twice.
they beat us twice. They have the tie. They're 8th. They finished. The Vikings finished 8th in the NFC.
Can we just
finished
talk
9th.
about that too? Like, I had the Vikings missing the playoffs, but can we? But I will say this: like, I'm going to give credit. Like, how did the Vikings just win 9 games?
It was out of nowhere.
I
Blink of an
blink,
eye.
and they don't have anything at quarterback.
That
they have a bunch of injuries on defense, and they have no running backs. They keep. I don't know what.
It's because of that defense. I don't get how Brian Flores.
And you can't say the
more,
schedule
like,
because they were second place.
Yeah,
they had a second place
were a
schedule last year.
14-win team last year. They just
That's
if
good coaching.
If you have a pass rush, Andrew Van Ginkel was a monster that last half of the season, but that pass rush turned over completely into an elite defense again, and they were able to create turnovers. They were able to keep their team in a 1-score game with a bum quarterback and Max Brosmer and J.J. McCarthy. But again, like if you can't see that defense matters, look what happened with the Minnesota Vikings this year. They have the same record. They had injuries all on their offensive line. Justin Jefferson had 2 touchdowns. Jordan Addison was suspended for the first 6 games of this year and was a non-factor. Jordan Mason hurt. Aaron Jones hurt. But they have the same record.
Look at Brad just locked
They
in.
just showed Brad in the locker room speech
you better
shaking
be
his head.
shaking your head for an offensive line. You
Get
better
your
be.
ass
He
out.
looks locked in. Honestly, hot take. Guys are gonna hate to hear this.
Look at Brad just dialed.
You guys are seeing Brad right there.
He's listening more than Anthony Fursker.
Can I tell you this? Seeing Brad right there, he looks mad.
That's what I'm saying.
I have
It's
a
the
feeling that
best
Brad's
thing.
going to go into
It's
this
the best
offseason
thing.
and he is going to just, I'm not going to say blow things up, but he is going to make some of the biggest moves that we've seen
I
yet.
agree with you.
And the team next year, like, it feels like it's setting up for it to be like a
This will
great
be
story.
the best thing. That's why you guys were mad at me, and I'm like, no, I want this shit to fucking
See how
burn
mad
to
he
the
looked?
ground. Because I believe that Brad Holmes, even though last 2 draft classes and free agent classes haven't looked like it, I do believe that Brad Holmes is a competent GM. I think he's a very good forward-thinking GM as far as these guys are going to be good in a little while, but he just got 2 in front of his way. Now, you combine that with like, oh, I actually got to prove that I'm an elite GM again. With the talent that's already here, it's going to be the best thing for him. But it needed to crash and burn so it could rise up again, Boone.
Just so you guys know, I just looked at Tankathon. The Lions currently, before the Sunday Night Football.
Okay.
I want to get your guys' guess. Where do you guys think they're at?
I think they're 16th. I think they're
Remember,
dead on
14th was their highest percentage going into today.
I think
I'll
they're
go.
dead
I'll go
average.
17.
17th as of right now.
Yeah.
And if I think I could be wrong, if the Ravens lose, maybe they move up.
No, that's what Steve said. He said that we need the Ravens to win.
Well, the Ravens. Oh yeah, okay, Ravens win because right now the
they're
Ravens.
17 and
you
they'll go
lost
to
the
The Ravens,
16.
the Ravens are 16th right now at 8-9.
So you need the Ravens to win and
Or
go to
8 and
16.
8.
That's
8
what
and 8.
Steve Wild said.
So we need a Ravens win tonight to go to 16,
Yeah.
which sucks because
They
if
would
you
be
lose,
like 13.
if you
they
lose,
lost.
you would have been at like 13-14.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
like,
You
and
had
I know
many
it sounds ridiculous,
You don't
but
want to
like
tell your players
that's the
let's lose.
difference between like getting like 3 spots is a lot
How do you,
in the
all
first
right,
like 15 days.
realistically though, like, and I hate to be that guy, like,
Like Caden
what
Proctor
do you
could go like 13.
But who are you mad? Like, what do you want to do? Like, be like, hey guys, sorry, we want 5 more picks. Like the current guys on the team are going to be pissed off.
No,
They're gonna be
no. I'm not
Jared's gonna
saying
be like,
it's not.
Jared's gonna be like, no. Like I'm playing.
not saying it's the players or
Jameer?
anything. I'm just saying
What?
in
He's just
an
saying no.
ideal world, I would prefer them to
Agreed.
lose.
But it's like, what are you
would
going to be
prefer
mad at? Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be the players like
you don't
Jared.
want them
just,
going out there.
hey,
purposely
Jared, just
tripping.
throw picks every time. But like,
Yeah.
I'm just in an ideal world, they lose this game.
You could
I would
tell
have been much
Graham,
happier.
like, hey, go be you today. Go ahead, miss a couple trap blocks.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I would have.
Flannel, what's up, man? Come on, Flannel looks like he's sleeping. Come on, Flannel.
Camera's there.
I love Flannel so
Thumbs
much.
up.
He's my favorite. I love you, Flannel.
Flannel, you want to voice your thoughts? Come over here.
Flannel, the man, the myth.
Flannel, can I ask you this?
Yeah.
And I think I know the answer to if I would have asked you, like, are you mad they won? Because you probably wanted them to lose, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
He's a smart one.
Can I ask, after season's over, we don't even, the game is almost irrelevant to me. Season's now over. We're into the postseason or off season officially. What do you want to see done? Like, what do you want to see Brad Holmes do?
Well, here's something that I think we haven't talked about enough. Obviously, we'd like to see him do more in free agency, trades, all of that stuff. But Brad Holmes has to nail this draft again.
Yep.
The last 2 have proven to be subpar, and I think that that's contributed to why the Lions are not a playoff team.
Yeah.
At some point, I understand, and a lot of people were saying this to kind of cope with the 2024 draft, that, hey, they've got so many cornerstone players. They don't need to draft starters every single time. Well, what are we saying now? It needs to be better in 2026, and I think it starts with, and Booner, you talked about it with me, taking the best offensive lineman available with their first pick in the draft.
Yep.
Which is going to be a little bit worse because they won today, but I'm not going to harp on that too much.
If you want to make a move, trade up, if there's a tackle, you do it.
Sure.
You give future assets away to get an offensive line for 2026.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like if
Either
there's
the-
at 14, one of those Utah tackles or something is there still, then you make the move.
Or I wouldn't be mad if they signed one either.
I don't know. So on the show the other day, we actually looked at free agent tackles. There's not That's why I've moved to the point of you have to draft the first round.
Nobody
tackle.
out there.
No, that's not worth it. That's going to actually make an impact instantly, or
Sure.
they will, but they're not going to be at the level that you need.
Moving the needle.
So I think first round tackle is the one that you just have to go all in on. And then again, I said if someone gives me a mock draft without a first round tackle, I think I'm just going to send it home. Like, I'll see you next year. Don't talk to me ever again.
And it's a deep tackle class at least. That's why
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be mad. You stay in the first round, but you trade back to get more assets in the second, maybe even third round.
Yeah,
and you
as
get a
long as
tackle
that
there.
first pick, if you get a
Yeah.
start, what you have to know, like the Josh Simmons last year, right?
Mhm.
He goes 30th, 32nd,
32nd.
whatever it was to the Kansas City Chiefs. If you can get that type of player, I know he got hurt, but he was very good for them when he went down. If you get a starting caliber instant tackle in the first round and you move back somehow and you get assets, I think that's a win for Brad. I do.
It has to be.
And if there's an injury, okay, whatever. But like, if you make that move and you get a starting tackle, I think that's a big win for Brad. And it's going to be harder for him to have those drafts that he did the first 2 years because he doesn't have as many assets, and the picks are a little bit different than they were before.
Mm-hmm.
But you do need to see him work his magic a little bit. The thing that always messes with me, Flannel, is like Howie Roseman. He sets himself up like future drafts, right? Brad's kind of set himself back in future drafts because he's like traded multiple thirds. He's made those like tough moves. So I want to see Brad start getting to that Howie Roseman phase.
No, and he should. There are GMs right now in the NFL when it comes to guys like Brent Veach, Howie Roseman, Les Snead. Those are probably the top of the food chain that Brad Holmes needs to aspire to. And I think this year, if has aspirations of being the best GM in the NFL, of being the GM that leads the Lions to the Super Bowl, this has to be the season that wakes him up a bit. Remember, I forgot I think he did this a couple times. Was it in a press conference? Was it on 97.1 where he really bristled over somebody talking about need? I think it was a press conference. Well, we're talking about, at least with that first round pick, a need for the best tackle. And I think Brad Holmes might need to change a bit of his draft philosophy up a bit because you cannot in any good conscience, I don't care about the injuries, although they are a factor a little bit. You cannot in good conscience say that everything you've done has been okay or right.
Yep.
You can't. Not when you miss the playoffs. Not when you miss the playoffs smack dab in a Super Bowl window.
Yeah, I think you're past that point. That's why I think a lot of people, the biggest thing with people with Brad is when Brad was building the foundation, he did go off the, hey, draft, we go off BPA, and then in free agency we'll do need. I think when you do get to that, and I think on the show we're going to start calling it phase 2 of the Lions Aaron, or almost said Aaron Glenn, but Brad Holmes' tenure. They just had Aaron Glenn safe on there, by the way, for his job.
Yeah,
that's why I thought
that's
of that.
why I was like, what the hell?
But that tenure, that phase 2, it's like, hey, you have to adapt a little bit.
Yeah.
You no longer can do, like, you're not doing what you did when you built this roster. It's now turned into maintaining and taking a push to a Super Bowl, which comes into, like, you need certain players. And if you need to take that in the draft, you need to do it. If you need it in free agency, you do it. Trade, you do it. You can't sit in your hands anymore and try and do this like year 1, year 2 rebuild.
You can't have
You're
to
not
be aggressive.
rebuilding.
If you think about the teams that have consistently stayed on top in the AFC, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Bengals, I guess when Joe Burrow is healthy, but all of those guys, what do they have? All those teams have elite quarterbacks.
Yep.
You look at the Rams after they got Stafford, they're on that level now. You look at the Niners, you look at the Eagles. Those are the 2 teams that I would say don't have elite quarterbacks, but stay on the top because they have elite talent acquisition. You look at the Niners. We watched them last night. That defense has nobody out there. No one. Bosa
They're in the
gone.
playoffs,
Fred
man.
Warner gone. They lost Hufanga. Diamador Lenore on the outside's their shutdown guy. They have the least amount of sacks in the NFL. But yet the Seattle Seahawks put up, 13 points on them? And so it's like you look at how they're able to stay at the top. It's because, they realize they don't have an elite top 5 quarterback, so they surround him in the most perfect situation they can. The Lions are acting like they got a Joe Burrow at home right now with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a very good quarterback, but he can be elite when you put him in damn near perfect situation. And to be a Super Bowl team, that's where you got to put Goff in. So that needs to be their number 1 priority. Start with the offensive line like we've been preaching about.
Yeah, one of probably the biggest misstep of the offseason, maybe on par with not replacing Ben Johnson adequately and not replacing Aaron Glenn adequately. I'm not saying Kelvin Shepherd's done, but for this year, I think he was a downgrade. But even more so than that was not preparing for Frank Ragnar retiring, not really doing anything.
It's crazy.
To
They just
Kevin.
didn't address those at all.
They did. There's many things, and I know hindsight's 20/20, but there's many things that the Lions could have done or Brad Holmes could have done to offset or at least prepare for Frank Ragnar retiring, prepare for Kevin Zeitler. I mean, they could have just re-signed Kevin Zeitler, maybe overpaid a little bit. I'm not saying
That's
that
what
was
I was like, yeah.
You could have,
Or even
you could
not
have.
even just Zeitler, but going out and getting a different guard. Like
true.
Like, look, I think like the Bears, they did spend money on their own line, but you can't tell me you could have made a couple moves like the Bears did on the old line to go out there and move money around and make those. You know that's your number 1.
Well, and here's what the Bears could have done what the Lions could have done, because what the Bears did was I believe they traded for Joe Thuney, they traded for Jonah Jackson, they signed Drew Dahlman. I understand that you weren't going to sign Drew Dahlman because Frank Ragnar was still there. They didn't know he was going to retire. I understand that you're not going to trade for Jonah Jackson because he'd already been there. But Joe Thuney, is that something that they could have explored? And then to go even back another draft, and I've talked about this before, one of the Lions' biggest missteps in terms of, I think, them missing the playoffs, or one of the things that they could have done to mitigate some of the offensive line issues, is at pick 61, instead of drafting Ennis Rakestraw, who has been an absolute nothing, they could have gone after 1 or 2 players. They could have drafted Cooper Beebe, who's currently the starting center of the Cowboys, or they could have drafted Dominique Puny, who is currently the starting right guard for the San Francisco 49ers. If the Lions had one of those 2 players, I think that they would have been set up a lot better this year to not have those interior offensive line issues and not have to rely on a rookie, a guy in Christian Mahogany who's promising.
They had Manu Flannel.
Oh yeah, Giovanni Manu. Thank you.
Wait, what about Colby? Did you say Colby Sorsdahl?
Oh, Colby Sorsdahl. Yes. Yeah. Oh yes.
I think, dude. I think the bottom line with Brad the last 2 drafts, and you know what? And I don't know where you guys. I'll put a hand up and say I was one of the ones. I feel like maybe all of us in Lions world did it. We all kind of, when we actually did have the roster and we thought we were great, when we got to those drafts, we all, like Klotz, you did with Sione Vaki, like we kind of all at one point liked the developmental side of things.
It seemed attractive.
It did.
Yeah.
And that's what Brad, 2 years ago, he started to draft development. And he was letting it known. He was like, I'm going to go BPA and I'm going to get guys that I like. And he said BPA. It was never BPA. It was Brad best player available.
It's my favorite guy here.
It was Brad's best available. And that was essentially what it was for him. And it started to turn into guys that they fell in love with, that they felt they could develop. And they were like, and I used to hear it all the time. Shout out Easy and them, but like they used to say it all the time as well, where it was like, well, you don't have any spots open on this roster for starters. Why do you expect Brad to keep drafting starters? Let me tell you something. You draft the best players, and guess what? If they beat the guy out, they beat him out. But you have the best players in the building. But like just sitting there and not drafting the best players because you're sitting there being like, well, we already have a starter at safety, the starter at center, a starter at guard, a starter at tackle. Now look where you are. And I think Brad, and I was hands up. I feel like all of us at one point were like, we do like the development. Jeff loved Gio. You love Sione Vaki. I loved Broderick Martin at one point. I don't know who you like, Flannel, but I'm sure that there was some like late draft picks that you were like, oh, I love that guy.
Yeah. No,
we all did it. And you know what? We all look like a fool. And Brad Holmes in those moments now looks like a fool. But guess what? You have a chance come whatever it is, March, April, to go out there and do what you did the first 2 years in the draft and go draft starters again. How about that?
Well, and because you outed yourself and everybody for something, I want to be very clear when I'm talking about things that
I love Golden Source now.
when I'm talking about things that the Lions should have done or ways that they could have, offset interior offensive line losses or even to coordinator losses, a lot of that is very hindsight. I'm not saying that at the time I was pounding the table, you got to draft Dominic Puny at 61. My thing is more that when the Lions have a disastrous season like they had, when they miss the playoffs, when they're in last place, when Ben Johnson wins the division to even drive the knife in even farther, you're allowed to assess what would have been the better option. I'm not saying that I predicted everything.
Yeah.
I'm saying that you have to, I'm saying where Brad Holmes could have looked himself in the mirror. And I don't know. I hope that he is. We'll see.
Well, I think he has looked in the mirror. He had the press conference last offseason. He was asked about Puka Nacua. And he was like, he was one of the highest wide receivers on my board. And then they passed up on him and went like Colby Sorsdale or something. And hindsight, Brad was like, I shouldn't have done that. And so I don't know. Hey, I'm going to step off for a second. Klotz, can I have you record a video roll for me while you go outside? All right. I'll be right back. Jeff's going to hop on with Flannel.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Flannel.
Hey, just like old times.
Just like old times, Flannel.
Yeah.
I put a poll in the chat because I wanted to get a vibe of where the people are at. And there's two options there. It's how do you feel about the win? There's an option on there for I'm happy they ended with a win, and there's an option for I'm mad because of a draft pick. I think it's like 60-40 in favor of the draft pick. So there's actually a lot more Lions fans than I thought they were just happy to leave with a win, which maybe there's just been so much torture over the whole season, but the last 3 games they lost. They just needed to see one go in the hoop, I guess. I mean, I'm still a little salty, but I think for those people to defend that take a little bit, I can see why you'd want to sweep Ben Johnson. I get that side of it.
I do. I just hope, and maybe this is...
But if this was like the Dolphins, would you say that?
No.
You know what I'm saying? I think it's the Bears angle of it. Yeah. I think it's just beating the Bears.
And I'm not mad
Ben
at
Johnson.
I'm not mad at people for feeling that way because you never want to root for your favorite team to lose. And you certainly don't want to root for your favorite team to lose to a favorite rival. My thing is, and maybe this is misguided thinking, or I'm thinking too much like a fan. And I've said this to Caleb and Gentry on the watch party. And I'm curious to see your thoughts on this. I hope that the Lions organizationally from top down don't take too much from this win. This was a meaningless game. You can have your bragging rights. You can have your pride. But at the end of the day, I hope that they realize that they still have a long way to go. They still need to look in the mirror. They still need to change some things in terms of talent acquisition and even coaching and making better hires. They definitely got to get a new OC, for example. All of that is still on the table. This is not a team where you can just say, oh, once we get our injured players back and do a few things, we'll be fine. This was a disastrous season, and I just want the Lions to remember that and to marinate that in that a bit, even if you feel good about the bragging rights you got over the Bears today.
By the way, side note, we are one sub away from 16,000.
Oh, awesome.
One singular sub. So tell a friend to just log on and subscribe. We're one sub away from 16,000. Second, I think the conversation lately, especially coming off that game, and I just want to make sure I give credit because if he didn't play well, we would be talking about him, is Jared Goff. Because and I know he had the pick, that was a pick later in the game, or whatever, people will bring that up. But the conversation after the Vikings game was replacing Jared Goff. And I understand where the league's heading with mobile quarterbacks. I'm not naive to that. I understand that it is an advantage to have a quarterback who can extend a play. I get it. I understand it. But people were focusing, in my opinion, a little too much on a conversation that to me right now is not relevant with the Jared Goff thing. And the only reason why I say that is not that you can't always talk about, hey, we can get better at quarterback. Okay, that's fine. But I think having the Jared Goff conversation right now takes away the blame on who it's supposed to be on, truthfully, and that is Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. I think those two are the two things that are most, and when you're talking about why the season's the way it is and who you should be frustrated at, I think it's Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. In a conversation after that Vikings game, got a lot of Jared Goff. It felt like a lot of Jared Goff conversation, which to me is kind of redirecting the narrative, which to me is you're not helping. All right. The two that should be under the microscope the most are those two. And I think today, they put a lot on his shoulders. I think they ran like almost double pass plays than they did run plays. And I know the offense took a crap in the third and fourth. I get that. But just overall, Jared, this season, changing of a coordinator midseason, play calling, and we can agree. John Morton to Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell's he's a pretty good play caller, but I don't think he's the answer personally. Offensive line issues, run game inconsistencies. He's played pretty well. So if you want to have a conversation about drafting a guy, in mid rounds or take a quarterback to sit behind Goff or whatever, fine. But to say like, oh, if we just upgrade our quarterback, it's like, Sam, you still don't have an O-line. You still can't get to the quarterback consistently besides Hutch, and you still have me and you at coordinator.
Well, I want to be clear. My last two appearances on your network with Caleb and the boys, I have been critical of Jared Goff, but it's not in the sense of, oh, they got to replace him or and I've been very, very cognizant of, yes, he doesn't have the offensive line that he's been accustomed to. He doesn't have the consistency in the running game that he's been accustomed to.
And you got to protect him. You got to give him a run game. I mean, you know how it is.
Yeah, he doesn't have the offensive coaching that he's been accustomed to, and that's all fair. My thing is, when it comes to Jared Goff, I also don't like the people who have just been like, look at the numbers, 34 touchdowns, 8 picks. He's had the best season of his life. Everything is great. I think with Jared Goff, and this has been my issue with the Lions as a whole this season, there's a lot of fugazi. There's a lot of fugazi with this team. And let me explain. Jared Goff had, I believe, 34 touchdowns, 8 picks. Aiden Hutchinson had 14 and a half sacks. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 1,400 receiving yards. Jamison Williams had 1,100 receiving yards. The Lions swept the Bears, and they still missed the playoffs. Jahmyr Gibbs had over 1,000 yards, I think 1,100, and they still missed the playoffs. And a lot of that, to me, and yes, the offensive line has a lot to do with it. The coordinators have something to do with it. But a lot of what they did was just situationally. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, I'll give you an example. I know I'm kind of rambling and getting off topic. About half of his rushing yards came in 3 games.
The last 6 weeks, Gibbs has been MIA. He's been on a milk carton.
Right.
The last 6 weeks.
And Jared Goff, I've said it before, in many situations this season, even though his numbers have looked pretty, I mean, let's look at a couple second halves of the game against Minnesota at home, where the Lions scored a grand total of 10 points in the second half, and their only touchdown was when they were down by 10 late in the game. Look at how their offense fell asleep in the second half at home against Green Bay, where they scored a grand total of 10 second half points, one touchdown down by 10, and 1 6-minute field goal drive down by 10. Even in the game against the Rams, where overall it was more on the defense, and we can agree with that, giving up 41 points. But with the offense going 3 and out in 3 consecutive drives to start the second half, not scoring a touchdown until they were down by 14 late in the game. There's just a lot of window dressing with this team, a lot of fugazi, and I think that's why this game ultimately irritates me a little bit, because it's like, now you win. In a lot of those games, it's like, oh, now that there's 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you're down by 10, now you put together a drive. It's just, there's a lot wrong with this team. And I guess my point out of all of this is that, yeah, it started with Jared Goff. I'm not saying replace him. I'm not saying he's been bad. Oh, see you. Good seeing you, Lucas. See you, Lucas. See you, baby.
Drive safe, bro.
I'm just saying that when it comes to this Detroit Lions team, you have to get beyond just look at the numbers, because a lot of it is very misleading and didn't come like situationally, if that makes sense.
The third quarter, they were budget.
Well,
Yes.
I'll say today's game actually was a very big, this is what the season was. Like, you almost just lost that game. The Bears, if they didn't, the Bears are the ones that lost that game. It wasn't really the Lions. At the end of the game, the Bears had the ball to go win, and they've done it all year.
You know what I think a big lesson from this game is, and I know the season's over. Guess what? Taking the points got you a win.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Dan Campbell.
Dude,
Taking the points got you a win today.
You're spot on.
Sam, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about it consistently, but I've been on it. That's probably my biggest gripe with Dan, is not that he goes for it on a fourth down, period. A lot of coaches are starting to do it. It's the situational awareness, and it's understanding the flow of a game. I think that's where Dan, sometimes it's head scratching. Sometimes, like, for example, I'll give you an example. The Steelers game. If you take the 3 points in the first quarter, all you needed at the end was a field goal to win.
Yeah.
And they were in field goal position. But you didn't, and you lose. Like, there's so many, and that's why I think, like, if this happened, there's probably some Dan Campbell moments in this season as well, where it's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And this goes back. He had moments in the 49ers game. In the NFC Championship game, Josh Reynolds, obviously the defense wasn't good, but there's moments where Dan Campbell all year being better at it. But in that game, he wasn't great in that 49ers game.
I will say, and I don't know if Dan ever looks at it like this. There is moments where majority of the time, like 80% of the time, Dan is aggressive. I'm going to be aggressive. And then when asked about it, if it doesn't work, he's like, well, that's who I am. I'm going to do that. But then there are times where he goes against it, and then he takes the points. And you're like, well, like all of a sudden, it's like a random game here and there. He does that. And it's like, what's the difference of this game than maybe it's the weather today? I don't know. But like, I wonder if like today, and this sounds really crazy, if the playoffs were on the line today, I feel like Dan Campbell wouldn't have taken the points.
Booner,
Which
as you were talking, I actually agree with you, because we're watching the game and being like, oh, in a meaningless game, you're a little bit more conservative and you take the points. But maybe because it's a meaningless game, he's actually trying to go against his instincts a little bit more.
Maybe
and
trying
actually
to
see if
check
it works.
out. Like, hey, you won. Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah,
what a concept, dude.
You can't, and I believe this, you cannot, and this is where adjusting and understanding game flow is important. And I'm not saying I'm a better head coach than Dan Campbell, but what I'm just saying,
I think you are.
Just observing the NFL and seeing what good coaches, when coaches win Super Bowls, what do? Right? What do you look at trends, right? I don't think, name me a head coach that has won a Super Bowl going for it on fourth down pretty much every time. It's not a thing. You can't do that. It's not you. What did, and Colin Cowherd said this, and by the way, he got a lot of shit for it. He said, you can't win a Super Bowl being reckless, or you can't win a Super Bowl you can't hoist the trophy being reckless. And when he says that, people are like, you're an idiot. That was 2 years ago.
Hold on a sec.
He is right.
Who's the one head coach who was reckless and won a Super Bowl, and who learned from him? Who kicked an onside kick coming out of the half to get the ball back to try and take
Sean Payton?
Sean Payton.
But Sean Payton was never like this.
No, but he was more. He was a guy. I feel like Dan Campbell got we're going to be a little more aggressive. Obviously, Dan has been the one that's taken it over on his own.
He's like, what do you call it?
Sean, I would say like Sean.
He's a maverick. That's the right word. Dan's a maverick when it comes to fourth downs. No one's ever been like
Dan
that.
did get the ideas probably from a guy like Sean, who like coming out of the Super Bowl halftime. the onside kick. That's one of the most aggressive things you could do in NFL history.
And I think, Jeff, what you're speaking to more of is that's more of who Dan Campbell is, and he does it consistently. It's almost when you're watching a game. I know this is more anecdotal. You're like, oh, it's 4th and 4. We know Dan's going to go for it. But to your point, Booner, we've seen situations in Super Bowls where a coach has made an aggressive call, like the opening of the second half onside kick by Sean Payton, and even Doug Peterson with the Philly special. I believe that was on 4th down at the end of the first half in that 2017 season, 2018 Super Bowl. So aggressive plays happen, but it was taking a risk. It's not systemically who they are, and that's become what Dan Campbell has been known for.
He has been a trailblazer when it comes to that.
That's probably what I meant is like winning a Super Bowl when you're like, our identity is we're a 4th down team. I've never seen a team win like that.
I mean, they almost did 2
win a
years
Super
ago,
Bowl like
the
that.
NFC Championship. If there weren't those drops, that would have been probably the first time that we've ever seen a team really be aggressive the way they were. And
have that type of success.
And really, like, they could have taken points in that game. But really, it was like if they just don't have those drops and they don't have that turnover.
But in that game, he took points when you probably could have argued he should have won. It's like he kind of does like he sometimes he's maybe a little unsure of what. It's like, well, here I'll take points, here I won't. Like, for example, the Rams game. You knew that game. Let's be everyone and their mother knew that game was going to be a shootout, right? Everyone knew that game was going to be a shootout. He takes 3 in the first quarter, but he doesn't go for it.
Yeah,
but in the Steelers game, now they scored 29, but in the beginning you're like, this could be a lower scoring game. He goes for it. So it's like, I don't think Dan even knows what the fuck. Like the Rams, you knew the Rams were going to score 40 points, and you take 3 there. I don't know. So it's like sometimes like that where it's like, I don't know. In Dan, and he's always getting a lot of credit for this. On Lions Collective, Justin Rogers, all those guys, they've been covering Lions for a while. They always say Dan is great at knowing how a game is going to go, which honestly, to his credit, before a game, he's like, this is how it's going to go. But then he gets in the game, and sometimes he just does shit that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's like a little. And I think Dan's a great coach. I do. I just think that's the thing. If you want to criticize Dan for his in-game management, that's fair. Like, I don't think anyone's ever stood up there and said Dan is an elite game manager. No. I don't think that's probably his one big
And he'll
flaw.
tell you that. He'll be the first one to tell you that too.
I think many people would agree with that.
And unfortunately, when you have a season like the Lions had, which was a disappointment, disaster, however you want to call it, you're going to look and you're going to see, especially because it was right smack dab in the middle of the Super Bowl window, you're going to see a GM who didn't do enough, and you're going to see a coach who didn't have that great of a year. And I'll stand on that. I think Brad Holmes, if you're doing the pie of blame, I think Brad Holmes gets the biggest slice out of anybody in the organization. But I think I would give Dan Campbell a larger slice than maybe your average Lions fan. When you look at some of those 4th down decisions, not understanding who your team is, that they're not the offense that they had last year, that it's not like they can just pick up 2 or 3 yards in their sleep because their offensive line isn't what it was. The play caller isn't what it was. The hiring of John Morton as an offensive coordinator, which was a complete and utter planets colliding disaster.
Failure.
Choosing to go with a young gun in-house in Kelvin Shepard instead of going after a guy like Dennis Allen, for example, which was an absolute home run hire. And there were plenty of other examples of Brandon Staley or somebody like that, a veteran, a proven defensive mind. Dan Campbell didn't have a great year either. He didn't have a great offseason. He didn't have a great in-season. And I hope that he understands that. And I hope that him, along with Brad, look themselves in the mirror and change their ways a bit. They don't have to change completely who they are because there's a lot of good things about both of them. They wouldn't have gotten to where they were NFC Championship 15-2 without it. But this is the humble pie offseason. It has to be the humble pie look in the mirror offseason.
So, excuse me. Dan talked at postgame, and he essentially said, here it looks like he essentially said, with this season, everything happens for a reason. And at the end of the day, believes it's going to be the best for them. And then he said, this is the part that I like. He says, it's up to nobody but Brad and I to fix it and to go out there. That's a great one, yeah. And he said, in the guys that we know are going to make it, like, we got to count on. Like, that's essentially what
that second part I love.
The message he put out. And I think the first part, I think it's more so the optimism towards the fans being like, listen, I know this is, and it's not great. Things happen for a reason. We're going to go out there. And maybe Dan is one of those hey, maybe we needed this to wake us up a little bit. Maybe, and then that's
it's like everything happens for a reason. It's like, well, it's a self-inflicted reason.
100%.
You know
but you might not like to hear it as fans. But Dan's not wrong. It's like if you ended up going like 10-7 and you were just average, you make the playoffs, you lose in the second round, and you still don't have a Super Bowl, they probably don't make the moves that they're going to now moving forward. And that's where Klotz, like, I hate the fact that Klotz wanted them to not make the playoffs, but that's where Klotz's point of, hey, if there is a disaster here, they are going to have more urgency to make moves. And I think that's where Dan's coming from, like, hey, all this happened for a reason. Maybe it was a wake-up call for me. Maybe it was a wake-up call for Brad, and we need to get our stuff together. And maybe we were a little too cocky in thinking that we were the smartest guys in the room. Maybe that's how they look at this season. They go, you know what, that's on us. And then the ending, him being like, it's up to me and Brad to fix this. 100%.
I want to know.
I like that they have that mindset.
I think I've seen more accountability from Dan in his tenure, even though, but the one I'm looking forward to is Brad this week. That dude is Mr. Not Accountable.
We haven't heard accountability from Brad over the last 2 years.
I want Brad to be just. I'm not saying the guy's going to come with a dunce cap and be like, I'm an idiot. But
he laughed at the media last offseason, the first press conference.
That's where he's got to come to that podium and be like, you know what? Like, again, I'm not saying the guy's got to be like, I'm an idiot, whatever.
He
that'd
took
be great,
40 minutes to dunk on the media last year.
That's where he's got to be like,
and
you know what?
Missed the playoffs.
I would, you know what? This is on, take accountability. We obviously, this is on me and Dan. This is something we didn't do enough to put this team in a better position. That's on me as a general manager. Clearly, I didn't get us enough help right away. And that's on us this offseason to fix that. I don't want him to go to the table and be like, whoa, how about them edge rushers? AQM had a good year this year. Some injuries. Bring up the injuries like first in the first 5 minutes. Like, I just hope it's a good showing from Brad. I really do. I think he'd get a lot of respect from people if he handles depending on how he handles his press conference.
He has to. And here's the thing: when you guys are talking about with what Dan Campbell said about how it's on me and Brad, I have zero concern about Dan Campbell being somebody who can look himself in the mirror and self-evaluate and change on the fly and, adjust and do what he thinks is best. I think he's a stand-up guy with integrity who knows how to take accountability. I can't say I know that about Brad Holmes. What I personally feel about Brad Holmes right now, an hour after the game ended, is that he's an arrogant prick. I really do. I don't like him. I like a lot of what he's done, but I don't like him.
Oh, flannel.
So from like the
flannel.
Just from.
Oh, I was not expecting all the words.
I don't want to have to go back and give all the examples, but from the receipts, from making the NFC Championship to just stuff that he's done at press conferences and on 97.1, I still think that he thinks his way is the best way. And please, Brad Holmes, prove me wrong. And you know what? If
so funny, dude.
If the Lions, if he leads the Lions to the Super Bowl, I'll get on my knees, kiss his feet, and be like, "I'm sorry for calling you an arrogant prick, Master Brad." But that's the difference that I see between somebody like Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. I trust Dan Campbell to look himself in the mirror and course correct. With Brad Holmes, I still think there's an avenue he could use for excuses. Like you guys said, injuries. Oh, AQM had 11 sacks, which this isn't an anti-AQM thing, but he could use that as like, yo, want an edge rusher, you got one. Doesn't matter, 9-8, no playoffs, last place.
By the way, Amon-Ra St. Brown, this season after today's game, 117 receptions, 1,400 yards.
Yes.
And 11 touchdowns. That's first team All-Pro. And then the last time he had that, that's better than last year. He had 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 115 catches. He had 100. He almost had career highs in this year. I'm going to see Jared Goff. I'm going to check Jared Goff out. I'm interested to see how Goff ended the season.
Well, that's what I keep saying, Booner. They all have great numbers, all of them.
I think the biggest thing is,
if you just look at numbers on this team, you'd be like, that team won 11 games.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
13.
Yeah, 11. Yeah, 12, 13 games.
But
just on the numbers.
Look at like some of these games they lost, and
you got 2,000-yard receivers,
the
1,000-yard rusher.
issues are so clear. They're the clearest.
Yeah, it's not a skill position issue.
No.
It's an offensive line issue.
Yeah, and it's the defense too at times.
Yeah,
too.
the defense.
It's those two things. Your defense in games that your offense played very well were like the worst in the league. And Jeff, remember like when we were going over the stats like halfway through the season, there was that stretch of football where they were like top 10 in all these categories. they were so bad defensively for the second half of the season. They dropped to the 20s in almost all those. Think about how bad in those categories you have to be to go to top 10 when you've already played 8 or 9 games to fall all the way to the 20s in those like that defense. When the Lions offense was playing great, they were they were giving up 30, 40 points, and it's like, dude, if the defense if your defense, and I know the third quarter woes for them when it comes to the offense wasn't great, but like, dude, if that defense in 1 or 2 games steps up, those Vikings games step up, in that Steelers game get you 1 stop, like, dude, it's such a different season. That's why people don't want to hear it. I wanted an experienced DC because you don't have those drop offs in the middle of the season, even with injuries, with an experienced defensive coordinator.
Do you know what else? When we talk about defensive coordinators, how we talk about other organizations getting that hire very right this offseason. Do you know who the New England Patriots defensive coordinator is?
Terrell Williams.
Terrell freaking Williams.
Well, he wasn't the DC. He like stopped at like the week 4.
Is he still the DC or no?
No. I think he was done. Like he had cancer.
He was, and then he stepped away. I don't know if he was back or not.
No. I think they switched. I think he stepped down. I think maybe week 4 or 5, or I don't know when it was.
Let me see.
Someone took over for him.
No more
Mike Vrabel. But by the way, Mike
Vrabel runs the defense.
He probably when Terrell Williams stepped down, it was probably Mike Vrabel.
You see with that, I don't know. He runs the defense. That's why I said head coaches, man. You at least want to feel confident one side of the ball always. Yeah. That's just how it should be as a head coach. You never have to worry about the Titans or the Patriots defense with Mike Vrabel, and they have Josh McDaniels, by the way.
Yeah,
it's a great coordinator. Yeah. I'll tell you what. By the way, we just hit 16,000 subs.
Nice.
So that is big time. You guys are the best. And shout out to we might be back here. We'll see. I mean, we still have things planned. I know the Lions are in the postseason, but we still want to do watch parties for, like, we have Super Bowl, we have the NFL draft.
Yeah.
We're still going to make things happen. So, and we're covering the draft, which we probably won't start the mock draft Monday until like after the Super Bowl, though. So I know people are already want doing that, like, right now.
People are already doing it though, but I think we should
wait because ours are. I think we have the best draft coverage in the entire state. I mean, ours is great. So, but that's why we have to wait. Something's great. You got to wait a little bit. Okay, wait like another month, and then we fire away.
I think it's good to let it like simmer. Like people are like, I want to see theirs.
Yeah, because we got a little February. After February, we have February, March, Combine, April. We have like 3 months basically of draft coverage, which is going to be
fun.
Yeah, and we'll have this guy right here. We're going to be talking ball with, so it'll be great. We'll be in Indy. I mean, we got a packed next couple months. Literally just the whole year. This whole year will be crazy.
There's no off season for the boys.
Doing a little research on the fly. Robert Saleh was another one who was hired this offseason. And yes, if I got the Terrell Williams situation a little bit wrong.
By the way, if you see coordinators, you'll probably see him go. You should make a decision in the next week or 2. Like that's for Dan. Usually after the season, you start firing guys. Yeah. So you'll know in about a week or 2 what happens with the coordinators.
Let these head coaches get fired, see what happens.
I'll be live tomorrow. We'll be live tomorrow night, and then Flannel will be on this week, right? Flannel, you're back this week, okay? And then, I mean, business as usual, man. So hit the like button on the stream, please. Hit the like button on the stream, and subscribe if you haven't already, because we got some big things planned. We appreciate the hell out of you guys. And you guys want to close it out? I'll end the stream. Say your last words.
Hey, shout out to everyone. 16K Flannel. Appreciate you coming today.
Oh yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. Hopefully next year I can make it to more. But you know what? As this year has went on, been able to be on a lot more, been able to work with all the guys at a crunch time at various situations. And again, I should say, because I've had a lot of history with everybody here as well. So it's been fun. Flannel. It's been a lot of fun.
I appreciate it. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Make sure you guys subscribe. Shout out. Hey, 16,000 is massive. Hopefully by the end or the start of next year, we're at 20. I did put a video out talking about the Kool-Aid, so go check that out on Twitter or Instagram. But we will see you guys. Shout out. What a season. What a 2025 season. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you guys. Bye.